lot of our edge, because we have these main deck cards like Blast's Act that just don't do very much.
Mm-hmm.
Blood Artist doesn't do enough here. There's not a lot of incremental things going on. All the cards are kind of one-for-ones. Blood Artist doesn't really like to be on a board state where it's not contributing itself.
And a card, obviously, Blasphemous Act combo as well with Boris Reckoner. Is it just difficult to combo off because of the amount of removal that Jund has in order to try to execute that combo?
Jund has a lot of ways to kill the Boris Reckoner without it triggering, ways including in response to the Blasphemous Act itself. And that Blasphemous Act is going to cost a lot of mana in this matchup, because you can't really overextend to the board. Barring with Lingering Souls, you're not going to have 6 creatures sitting on the board. Jund has things like Bonfire, things like Mizium Mortars to wipe the board. Again, making Act cost you close to full price, and you're not going to get 9 or 8, 6+ mana in play.
Looks like both players are actually taking a mulligan this game. Drew Levin, obviously a very well-known player on the Open Series, has a lot of success here. Top-aided multiple Opens. Pat Cox also had a lot of success in the Open Series. I believe he won an invitational early on. And obviously a lot of success on Pro Tour too, as a Pro Tour top 8, as a Grand Prix win, several other Grand Prix top 8. So both players pretty established. They know what they're doing. Pat Cox, pretty kind of like a Jund player, plays in pretty much every format, plays in Modern, plays in Legacy, plays in Standard. Very familiar with Jund. Drew, generally he'll just play whatever the best deck is.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, played Callblade a lot when it was popular, played Delver a lot when it was popular. Kind of just in that category of, if it's the best deck, I'm just going to play it regardless of what the metagame says. And looks like both players still shuffling, trying to draw 6 here. And like you said, Bonfire the Damned, Mizium Mortars, very good against the deck if they try to overcommit, which the Aristocrats can sometimes do to set up a Blasphemous Act. Pat also has 2 copies of Tragic Slip, which some Jund decks don't actually play. Interesting in this matchup because it's a way to deal with Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
It's huge here, because that is really your trump card in this matchup. But here we see Pat has things like Vampire Nighthawk to slow down your onslaught, your attack in the air, and then those Tragic Slips to actually really kill those Aristocrats. So that could potentially be very big in the matchup.
Yeah, and the few times we have seen Aristocrats on camera, it's looked very impressive. This is the one deck though, it looks like it could actually have a reasonable matchup against Aristocrats. Most of the time, I believe we've seen either the Mirror or in the Invitational, we actually saw Ben Friedman playing against control decks with it.
Yep.
Skirt High Priest on turn 2 from Drew Levin.
Not usually a powerhouse in this matchup, just because given the amount of removal that Jund has, very hard to get it active. 3 creatures, and there we see it just dies on the spot. Even that, usually I think there's better targets for Jund, but maybe Pat has either additional spot removal or just doesn't want to take the chance of demons coming out. And here we see Drew playing another High Priest. Yeah. No sack outlet yet, no way to really enable it.
It looks like we have signature card, Huntmaster of the Fells coming down here. Again, one of these value creatures that really makes Jund work. Huntmaster, Thragtusk, those cards are just very difficult for a lot of decks to deal with.
Drew drawing Lingering Souls, which is certainly one of the important cards in this matchup.
Looks like he also has a Blasphemous Act and a Tragic Slip in his hand, so has removal, but again, removal is not exactly what you want against Jund, just because all those creatures, like you said, they're value creatures. 1-for-1ing in this matchup doesn't seem like you're going to be getting much anywhere.
Even here, I mean, if Pat even just passes back and flips that Huntmaster, it's going to cause big problems for Drew.
Yeah, Drew does have a Tragic Slip, but again, that's not really going to stop the Huntmaster from flipping.
He may just have to cast it,
which
just to stop the flip.
I think Pat would be fine with.
Absolutely, just discarding a card to stop. I mean, to be fair, Pat would have to skip his turn to do this, so in some ways you're kind of time walking in by playing that Tragic Slip there, so you don't mind a tremendous amount, especially if Drew has something like Artell Aristocrat in his hand, which will turn on that High Priest.
But the question here is, do you actually attack with the Wolf token here? Because again, you're not effectively doing nothing. You could attack, you could pump here.
Sure.
Even though the High Priest will get turned on if you chump block, he doesn't have another creature that he can actually tap to activate. So
it looks like Pat might just be playing Garruk Primal Hunter here. Oh no, he's just going to go in for the maximum Wolf run. At least that's what he's representing.
And I like this here. I mean, Drew can obviously double block the Huntmaster if he wants, but not sure how much value he's getting there.
I think he has to, though.
He has to do that. He still has a Tragic Slip. I don't think Pat cares, though. He just wants that Garruk.
I suspect what's going to happen here is Pat's just going to play, I think he has a second Huntmaster in his hand, or he might just play Garruk Primal Hunter. One of those two is going to be following up with this play. I don't think he has any instant speed removal. Yeah, so there's going to trade there. Drew takes 2.
And if your plan is to just attack if your plan is to just play either a Huntmaster, second Huntmaster, or a Garruk, do you attack with both creatures, or would you just send in the Wolf?
I attack with both. Although here now he's going to get this second Huntmaster Tragic Slipped, which is actually quite good for Drew.
Although Drew does have a Blasphemous Act, but okay, so it looks like he's just going to
cast though, the Blasphemous Act isn't going to get him any kind of advantage. He really wants to have a Reckoner in play or some or Blood Artist to trigger and drawing another Tragic Slip. So we'll probably just see a flashback of that Lingering Souls.
So do you just hold on to that Blasphemous Act until you can combo with it? Really, no need to, unless you absolutely need to cast it.
Not necessarily, but you definitely want to be getting an advantage. You don't want to just trade your High Priest and Blast Act for his 2 Wolf tokens.
Yeah.
Right. Then you're just down so many cards.
So again, he has a Tragic Slip. Can't really kill anything and activate the High Priest this turn.
Yep.
Unless something crazy happens on Pat's side of the board. Kind of expect just maybe an attack here and then a Garruk.
That's what I'm expecting. Drew, go ahead and take it. Drew really wants to draw some kind of smart move like an Orzhov Charm would be the best draw for him here. Get those 5/5s coming out, especially now that this Garruk's showing up.
Yeah, he needs a way to actually deal with the Garruk. He has Lingering Souls tokens. They're going to be able to attack the Garruk, so he'll do some work there. But again, obviously, really just wants a removal spell. Now, does Drew actually have any Orzhov Charms in his main deck? Or okay, so not exactly the same list as Ben Friedman or Brad Nelson.
Right.
I believe they play 4 copies of Tragic Slip and no Orzhov Charms.
I think Drew's playing something closer to what Sam Black played.
Okay. Interesting here. I believe he drew. I know he has Lands, Blast Back, and Tragic Slip. Did he draw another High Priest, or does he only have 2 in his deck?
He has 4 in his deck.
Okay.
Certainly could have drawn another High Priest.
So we have 2 Wolves and a Beast on Pat's side of the board. Drew contemplating what his next move here is. It looks like he does have another High Priest. So would you Tragic Slip? I guess you don't need to. You could just chump block and then activate.
Yep.
So.
The real question here is, do you attack the Garruk with the 2 Lingering Souls tokens?
I think you probably want a 5/5, right? Because if you make a 5/5, it's still going to be able to attack the Garruk next turn. You're not going to be able to kill the Garruk this turn.
Here in package, draw 3 off that Garruk potentially, which I don't know how big of a threat that is to Drew. I do agree. I think you can't get away with attacking there, just because the threat of the swing back is just too great.
Yeah, I actually I like drawing 3 here. Just because you have to assume, okay, a 5/5's coming, I need to draw some answer to it, or like some sort of action spell.
Well, the 5/5 even is not a very good blocker against a Wolf Run, right?
Oh,
It
no,
just trades.
but you have to imagine if a 5/5 is getting made, it's probably just going to come after the Garruk anyway. So do you want another
Drew might be
3/3,
dead,
or do you
though.
want to draw 3 cards?
If he does that, I mean, so Drew chumps here.
Well,
Wolf
no,
Run.
he doesn't need to chump with everything, right?
He chumps a creature.
He can jump 1 creature.
Right.
He can make a 5/5. He goes to 8. Now, what does Pat do on his turn? He still has a Tragic Slip, so he can Tragic Slip a token if he chooses to. He can untap.
Drew's going to go to 4 here.
You
That Wolf Run.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So you think he's going to activate the Wolf Run at max?
That would be
If that's the
my
case, then he
assumption.
probably is just going to make the Beast token. Then. Okay, so that's exactly what he does.
Right.
Max pump.
And now Drew's going to be forced to blast his act.
Okay.
And unfortunately, once he does that, Garruk Primal Hunter's still going to be sitting here in 3 loyalty.
With a Wolf Run in play.
Right.
So again, still, well, actually no. He can make the 5/5 attack Garruk then Blasphemous Act, so he can clear the board.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yes. He will, you're right. He can do that. Okay, so that is better for Drew. Then he'll still have the Tragic Slip in his hand.
Yeah, so he'll be able to clear the board completely, get Garruk off the, make a 5/5, attack Garruk. Pat obviously tapped out, so unlikely he's going to draw 3 now. Probably just going to make another 3. Why draw 3 if you're not going to be able to cast anything this turn? So probably just going to make another 3/3 this turn.
No, choosing to draw.
Choosing to draw. Interesting.
I like that as the line for it. I think that is a better use for it.
But
Drew,
why not do it first? Yeah, because play around
Interesting.
Tragic Slip.
What are we doing here, Drew?
So decides to
Kill a 2/2 wolf. Oh, he killed the Wolf Run Wolf. Right, of course. Otherwise, he was going to draw 6.
Yeah.
Which somehow we were missing for a second there.
Makes a lot of sense there. So, not the worst thing. It's interesting that he would do it. Yeah, why? I guess, well, if you're going to Wolf Run,
right, you draw extra cards. Yeah, that makes that whole line made complete sense once we kind of the Wolf Run interaction with Garruk.
Yeah. So, the 5/5 comes into play. At this point, I don't think you really,
being at 5 life, I think you almost can't not blast back it, which is really awkward.
No, but you can. Yeah, just because of the Wolf Run. Wolf Run's too dangerous.
Too good, right? You're gonna maybe you send one of the 1/1s at Garrick and you just hope he didn't draw a removal spell.
So Wolf Run's going to be +4. You have 7.
So you're going to
toughness.
1. If he has a land, you're dead.
Yeah.
Because when you double block the 2/2, he just pumps that one.
Yep.
And you only have the 3 toughness to
well, you have the 5/5 demon too. You don't have to attack with the demon.
But let's say the demon blocks the 3/3. You double block the 2/2.
Yeah. So it looks like
Wolf runs the 2/2, and you're taking.
So Drew sees what's up, kills the Garrick with 1 token, sends the rest of the 8 damage towards Pat, 7 damage towards Pat, and then just cast Blast Stack close combat.
Tapping some amount of lands. He's tapped out, so it doesn't really matter. So it's more than enough mana.
There are 6 creatures, so it's only 3 mana. Yep. And everything works. And it doesn't look like Drew has much gas left, but neither does Pat. So.
Pat just drew 3 cards.
But it looks like it's a land and a Farseek.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good news for Drew. Pat doesn't have a creature.
Oh, he drew a Huntmaster, I believe.
That is not what we wanted.
No. So,
yeah, that's a Huntmaster sitting there. Huntmaster is kind of the optimal card with this Wolf Run in play.
Yes.
Drew probably has to draw another Blast Attack now.
So Drew, no cards in hand now. We're going to get a Farseek, another Farseek. So did he not draw a Huntmaster, or maybe he just didn't play a land?
He also has a land. He has a mountain in his hand. He'll go Mountain Huntmaster still.
So 2 Farseeks to help fuel Keswick Wolf Run a little more, even though he probably doesn't need it. And then we're going to have land. Oh, just Nighthawk.
Interesting. Okay. Holding the Huntmaster for some reason. Oh, but Drew's dead anyway.
Doesn't matter. All he needed was any creature, I guess. Didn't really care. So Pat Cox wins the first game thanks to Keswick Wolf Run and a couple of Huntmaster tokens. Drew, not a very good start. Again, both players mulligan, but Pat's deck is a little more robust off of mulligan because of those creatures like Huntmasters and Thragtusk, as well as Planeswalkers, which all played a huge role in that game. After the board, Pat has a Grafdigger's Cage, a Bonfire of the Damned, 1 copy of Mizzy Immortals, 2 Slaughter Games, 2 Liliana of the Veil, 1 Vraska the Unseen, 2 Underworld Connections, 2 Pillar Flames, 2 copies of Duress, and 1 Rakdos Return.
Yep.
Now, obviously, cards like Bonfire of the Damned, Mizzy Immortals, you probably expect those cards to come in.
They're going to go right into the deck. Along with those Pillar Flames, I suspect.
Pillar Flames, again, a cheap way to deal with High Priest, which could, be an issue. Now, Liliana of the Veil, obviously not a card you want against the Lingering Souls deck. Vraska the Unseen, probably more of a deck against Esper Control and stuff.
It depends
what do you consider?
On if Pat knows the sideboard plan. Because Drew's bringing in Sorens and Intangible Virtues.
Okay.
And given those cards coming in, he definitely wants that Vraska.
Mm-hmm. And, this deck was pretty popular yesterday. Depending on how much Pat's done his homework, maybe he will bring in the Vraska just to sort of deal with those enchantments and Planeswalkers. Yep. Underworld Connection is not coming in. Duress, again, same thing. You think it's worth it to take a Blasphemous Act or a Sorin?
The Blasphemous Acts are getting boarded out.
Okay.
They're not good against Jund. I expect Drew to go -3 Blasphemous Act, probably -4 Blood Artist is my guess, and even cut some High Priests. Those cards are all pretty bad here. Bringing in the Intangible Virtues, the Obsidats, the Sorens, and the Duresses.
Okay.
And so Drew has what is that? That's 11 cards he wants to bring in, and conveniently there's 4 Blood Artists, 4 High Priests, and 3 Blasphemous Acts to bring out. Mm-hmm. So we have an 11 for 11 swap. I think that turns Drew's deck into something much more similar to Aristocrats 1 version post-sideboard.
Okay.
The 2 things kind of converge into the same sort of list.
Mm-hmm.
More token heavy in this version with this Intangible Virtues than we were with our list in Montreal, but it's the same general plan.
But Bonfire is just so good against that plan, though. Wipes off the board, deals with Planeswalkers, and it looks like it's pretty easy swap for Pat as well. Again, like you said, Bonfire's coming in, Mizzy Immortals coming in, Vraska probably coming in as well, along with 2 copies of Pillar Flame. Taking out the Ground Seal, not very good. Rakdos Return, probably doesn't want that either, and then 1 copy of Liliana of the Veil. So probably taking those 5 out for the 5 that we mentioned.
Yep.
A pretty easy swap, probably.
I suspect that after sideboard that it's pretty close to even. Mm-hmm. Just based on my experience playing against John at the PT. And the PT list so I played against Owen Turtenwald, who top-8'd the Pro Tour with our Team Jund list. Our list, I think, was much better in the matchup against Aristocrats than this list is. Mm-hmm. Had cards like Staff of Nim, which was shockingly powerful in the matchup.
Okay.
And also Owen had gotten to play 50 games in testing against the deck. Pat here, no idea if he's ever played against it before. That could have some impact.
On the other side, though, again, Aristocrat's very difficult deck to pilot. How familiar is Drew with the deck?
Reasonably familiar with the deck. I think he's gotten a decent number of games in. Obviously, he's had quite a few just today alone.
Yeah.
And he played it quite a bit in testing. I know he's talked to Sam a lot about it. Kind of theory crafting. They had dinner together on Thursday night, just talking about the deck and its matchups. Drew did defeat Jund earlier in this tournament as well. He told me. While Sam actually went 0-3 against Jund, which ended his tournament early. So we'll see if Drew could replicate his earlier success, or if the results that Sam saw kind of come back to the forefront here.
Yeah, it definitely seems more even after board. But again, those Bonfire of the Dams just seems too huge in this matchup. We've seen how the Miracles can just turn the game around. Having that back-breaking spell, Drew doesn't really have anything as back-breaking that he can top deck in his deck. You know?
Certainly true.
So again, much more even than game one. Interesting to see how this one plays out. Drew obviously gets to be on the play of this turn at this time. Hopefully he doesn't have to mulligan. We have a nice fair match to see kind of how it plays out, because I'm really interested, because this is one of the decks that you're probably going to see a lot of in the upcoming PTQ season.
It's very
true. Kind of had a breakout last weekend at the PTQ in Philadelphia. Now this weekend it's kind of been the talk of the tournament, more or less.
Yeah, we didn't see it very much in the actual Invitational, but I think that was much more due to the legacy impact on the players piloting it.
Yeah.
Because you see, 4 very prominent players in this tournament in Todd Anderson, Charles Gindy, Brad Nelson, and Drew Levin, all piloting this deck, all going 7-1.
Yep.
Before running into each other, the 4 of them last round.
Yeah, I think the fact that they just got to play this deck, they didn't have to worry about legacy at all, definitely helped them, and it kind of shows you how powerful this deck can be. Everyone's in top 8 contention. Again, you're talking about 4 players that are all in top 8 contention with the same deck.
So here we see Drew leaving in Blood Artist, so he did not do my 11 for 11 swap. I'm not sure which part of it changed. Maybe he didn't bring in Duresses, maybe he cut something else. I'll be interested to talk to him after this and find out exactly what his plan was here.
Wow. So Pat definitely respects the Blood Artist. Decided to just Mizzy and Mortars that.
Blood Artist is a good answer in some ways to Bonfire.
Yeah, if Drew's able to put enough pressure on, it gets to the point where even a mass top deck Bonfire of the Damned won't really matter. Same thing with Boros Reckoner. Boros Reckoner is another card that's pretty good against Bonfire of the Damned.
Yep.
If you're able to put enough pressure on them.
Yeah, our opinion, kind of, again, this was with Aristocrats 1, was between the Boros Reckoners and the Cartel Aristocrats and the Falkmath Aristocrats, we had enough game against Bonfire that it usually wouldn't be enough on its own. But here we see catching his second copy of Mizzy and Mortars. Those are both the copies that Pat is playing.
And a little frustrating for Pat, because both his removal spells required him to take a total 4 damage. So, and here comes
a total
Sorin.
5.
A total 5 damage.
The drain plus the
drain and plus the 4 from the Mizzy and Mortars and the Reckoner. So things going pretty well for Drew to start. Even though both his creatures were killed by Pat, he's able to do some damage to Pat and follow things up with the Planeswalker.
Drew really wants to draw Lingering Souls here.
Yeah, Lingering Souls would be great. Cast, flashback possibly.
And then you get to Emblem.
Then you start embleming?
Yeah, which is, I think, the primary way you get to put pressure on Jund in these sideboard games is that I think you want to start aggressively Sorin embleming when appropriate.
Yeah, because even if they deal with the Sorin, having that emblem out there is huge.
It makes each half of your casting of Lingering Souls a legitimate threat on its own. That means you don't have to overextend as much into Bonfire.
Yeah.
You just play the first half, you have 2/3/1 flyers. That's a pretty big threat for 3 mana.
Yeah. It looks like there might be an Aristocrat in Drew's hand.
He definitely has a Cartel Aristocrat, which he drew this turn. I think he also has 2 Tragic Slips.
It looks like he's going to make another Vampire here. And, yep, definitely a Cartel Aristocrat. I believe he also has a Falconwrath Aristocrat and a Tragic Slip.
That looks right to me, too. I expect we'll see the Falconwrath Aristocrat then show up right now and swing over for 4 in the air here, but no, it looks like playing Cartel Aristocrat. So I guess trying to protect his Sorin. Pat already having that Wolf Run in play.
Yep.
Probably a little frustrating for Drew. I believe Pat may also have a Tragic Slip in hand, which would go very poorly when Drew sacks one of these vampires that probably pro-green his Cartel Aristocrat for blocking. So, also no Livyable there in his hand.
And again, Pat does have the Huntmaster of the Fells. He can choose to just pass the turn and try to flip it.
Sure.
And if he does
that won't work. In this current board state.
Yeah, in this current board state. So again, if he does have the Tragic Slip, it's even worse for Drew.
Hopefully Drew should just take 2 here, I think. He doesn't want to try to get tricky when Pat has all his mana untapped.
Well, is he attacking Drew or is he attacking Sorin?
Either way, so I mean, he can only run for one.
Yep.
So this could get Drew into trouble. Drew, though, may not realize that Pat has Tragic Slips in his deck.
Yep.
So he doesn't understand what he's opening himself up to in terms of losing an extra creature.
But would Pat even cast a Tragic Slip here, or would he just pass the turn and then just try to attempt to kill the Cartel Aristocrat on Drew's turn, forcing him to sacrifice another creature, and then he can
true. True. Slipping the Aristocrat here is the same thing as just later slipping that Vampire token. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Probably just wants to pass the turn and flip.
Long day of Magic.
Drew doesn't have a black mana open. If Pat could, if reads the situation correctly, probably knows that he doesn't have another removal spell. But again, Drew could put the Huntmaster flip on the stack, sack a Vampire token to the Aristocrat, and then Tragic Slip the Huntmaster.
Yep. It actually looks like Pat actually does not have a slip in his hand. I think it has a Vampire Nighthawk he actually has.
So it looks like, yes, Cartel Aristocrat will be able to eat up the Wolf token, and just another Huntmaster comes down. So, not really a productive turn there for Pat. He trades a Wolf for a 1/1 Vampire, effectively, and Soren still has all his counters.
Drew does not?
No, he does not. That's a Blood Crypt. Okay, so that's...
I thought the same thing you did.
I thought it was a Sacred Foundry as well. So, ideal turn for Drew there.
So now he gets to play a land, cast Falkwrath Aristocrat, and leave up Tragic Slip.
Yep.
We might even see an emblem here. Emblem attack with everyone. Seems like a pretty reasonable line to me.
No.
Okay, Drew just playing it safe.
Are we going to actually see Falconwrath Aristocrat this turn? Does he even have it?
I can't imagine. I don't know. Yeah.
There it is. Okay.
We didn't see that and be very confused.
Falconwrath Aristocrat does enter play.
Yep.
And it's going to come over alone and swing for 4, dropping Pat to 11.
I like this land a lot. So now what Drew can do is Pat attacks with both, block them both, and then just slip whichever one gets Wolf Run.
Mm-hmm. And again, Wolf Run, Pat only has 4 mana, so it's not like he's going to be able to Wolf Run a lot. Soren is already at 6 loyalty.
So Drew can ultimately just take that Huntmaster.
Yeah.
Or the Olivia that Pat might be tempted to play here.
I'd prefer to just take it and then Emblem next turn and just swing with everybody. Although, if Pat only attacks with this Wolf, I also like the line of just blocking it. Yeah, why not? Same play as last turn.
Pat may have now drawn a Tragic Slip, but again, he's saving that for the Falkwrath Aristocrat, certainly. But that is the top card in his hand.
That Soren is starting to become a real problem. Is he going to be able to flip the Huntmaster next turn? Is he going to try to just pass the turn here?
I actually like these plays of Pat for trading his wolves off for those vampires, because otherwise when that Soren emblems,
it's going to get a little out of control.
And gain a lot of life for Drew.
Yeah.
So here he's going to trade without the life gain. And he does just pass now. Drew going to go ahead and then slip that Huntmaster.
Yeah, so Drew has to slip there.
And Pat might just be, if he doesn't have an instant, he's in a lot. Oh, there's definitely Tragic Slip.
He does have a Tragic Slip, so.
He'll slip that Aristocrat back then, leaving Drew with just the 2 creatures. He could go ahead and wait, but no, we're going to do it right now.
Yeah. So Pat, again, can't know that Drew would have a second Tragic Slip there. Probably would have played a Nighthawk had he known, but again, not much you can do there.
I think it might be Emblem time. Although, leveling up and just getting that ultimate ready, also pretty powerful here.
Looks like another Vampire's coming, trying to get the ultimate.
I like this line by Drew. Playing a little slower, saying, okay, you can't play any more creatures.
Yeah, Pat, and Pat doesn't have a lot of mana in play. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about a Bonfire. Obviously, still an issue somewhat, but
not even that bad. Bonfire will kill 2 vampires and take 2 loyalty off, or 3 loyalty off of Soren, but
wow,
that's just gonna get ultimated.
And I gotta say, Pat has Drew an Underworld connection.
Yep.
So it looks like he did board an Underworld connection. Is that mostly just because he wants to try to be the control player in this matchup?
Yeah, and I think that actually does make some sense. I like that as a sideboard option for him.
Mm-hmm.
I know we didn't mention it when we were talking previously, but it does make sense.
Maybe just not bothering with Pillar Flame.
He may not have realized how sort of aggro tokeny Drew was going, which makes the connections a little bit worse.
Yeah. Pillar Flame, probably not. I'm not sure what he boarded in or not, but obviously Pillar Flame, definitely something you want in this matchup.
Oh, that's the way that does what?
Well,
That might be a little awkward.
thank you for your vampire.
Oh, I don't think Pat had any really other plays. I mean, he was in trouble no matter what he did, but like, okay, well, that's unfortunate. Ooh,
And,
wow, what a draw from Drew.
Wow. So everything's coming over.
Aiding him. I'm actually not even convinced that's better than just embleming, to be honest. I think embleming was actually just going to make him chump with the Olivia, and then you got to keep.
Right,
Oh, this is doing nothing now.
Bonfire for 3.
And Pat's still just dead on board. Drew will just save his 2 aristocrats, let everything else go, and then just kill him on the swing back.
Looks like he's gonna ping something.
Oh, he wants to make it survive the bonfire.
Yeah.
That works too.
And then Falcon Wrath of Resurrection gets saved.
By the cartel aristocrat.
Yep. So it doesn't really matter.
Drew just missed the counter on his
Yeah.
Falcon aristocrat. Just pointing that one out.
So,
Just to needle him a little bit later.
A little loose, yeah.
I mean, when they're dead on board, it's hard to critique too much, but any little needle for Mr. Drew Levin. Got to keep his ego in check here.
So yeah, some interesting lines there. Again, you felt he should have been a little bit more aggressive with the emblems, probably.
I actually think the way the game kind of matured, I think he may have had a better sense of that than I did. Just because Pat was resource constrained, there's just no reason to overextend there. And I like Drew's line a lot.
And it looks like we got an update on another match. Todd Anderson, I believe he lost his win in.
Yep, I believe Elliot Wolcheski.
He was sitting at 8-1, was forced to play it out in the last round, and he lost, dropping down to 8-2. Elliot Wolcheski now should be a lock for top 8. He is 9-1, has 25 points.
25 points. That leaves 2 aristocrat players still in contention: Drew Levin and Brad Nelson, both of whom have to win this round to make it in. Just because of the way that the standings broke. Brad Nelson, despite being X-1, could not draw. He is playing against, I believe, Jonathan Gonos on table 4, probably also in the feature match area somewhere. And you can see Brad right there behind Pat, standing up. Unclear if he was victorious. He's holding the slip, probably means that he won. Suggests that Brad likely into the top 8 with this same deck as Drew Levin, although a slightly few card different version.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think both players were 8-0-1.
8-0-1, yes.
Yeah.
So Todd actually falls to X1-1.
Yep.
So Todd now has.
He definitely has a chance.
Oh no, sorry. Todd was X1-1. He's now X2-1.
Yes.
Yeah. He and Drew both drew last round at X1.
Yep.
With the thought that they would both be in if they won the next round. Likely was true. Todd was likely in with a win, but unfortunately did not get there.
So now he's out of top 8, falls to 7-2-1, and out of top 8. And Elliot goes up to 8-1-1, and again, 8-1-1 is going to be. You might have one person, a couple of people at 8-1-1 who don't make top 8 at this tournament.
It's possible one person will not make it. I do want to jump back in here. So we see both players going back to their sideboards, doing a lot of thinking. This is something I think is important to do in matchups where you're not completely sure what's going on. So Pat here is learning as he plays.
Yep.
Saw some new cards out of Drew. Saw Sorin, for instance. Maybe he didn't expect that. And now might be reconsidering, for instance, those Underworld connections. Maybe he wants to go into some more controlling, more removal-oriented build, those Pillar Flames. Maybe he's bringing that Vraska now. Maybe he didn't have that in for game 2. A lot of possible angles that Pat could be going here.
I definitely think Pat is rethinking his strategy now that he saw what's coming out of Drew. Do you think this is mostly posturing from Drew, or do you think he's actually changing up his board now being on the draw?
Being on the draw certainly could change things. It's maybe now like something like Blood Artist a little bit worse. He doesn't have that extra turn window to cast it, so he's playing his threats, and then he gets bonfired. He hasn't had the turn yet to kind of take one off and play the Blood Artist. I can see that card being a little bit worse on the draw. Maybe Duress gets a little more important on the draw. He wants something to be able to do on turn 1, perhaps. You know he's not going to be really quite as aggressive.
But again, how bad is Blood Artist in this matchup? Because again, obviously it's an 0-1, but if you're able to play it after you do a lot of damage and you put Pat in a position where he has to bonfire, he has to Mizia Mortars, it's actually not a bad way to burn Pat out.
I agree with you there. I just think that with this configuration, it's not as easy to do a lot of damage.
Okay.
You don't have cards like Champion of the Parish getting in for early damage. Typically, going, and Pat has cards like Huntmaster, where he's gaining life and gumming up the ground.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times, like you're gonna get to turn 5, turn 6, Pat could easily even be at 20 or 22 life still. And probably gonna be very hard for him to be much below 15.
Yeah.
And so, I think Blood Artist Fine card that if you draw it in the late game and you want to kind of lock up a board where you're ahead. Good if you draw multiple Lingering Souls, most likely. But those are cards that are kind of already good on their own. And so I think it makes sure maybe your good draw is better.
Yeah.
But it makes your mediocre draw is bad.
Okay. Yeah, it makes total sense. And yeah, you're probably right. It's going to be tough for Drew to be hyper aggressive in this match, particularly being on the draw.
Yep.
Pat can sort of get this start where he just gums up the board too much and actually gains life at the same time. So interesting to see how this game plays out. Both players didn't have the best starts in games 1 and 2. Pat obviously really wants to go turn 2 Farseek, which I think is sort of like the namesake card for Jund. Really, the deck looks so much worse without a Farseek.
Drew Levin now going to 6 on the draw. Pat doesn't look thrilled with his hand just from his body language. My guess is he kept a reasonable hand, nothing too outstanding, but I've been known to be wrong about body reads before.
It could be one of those hands where it's a reasonable hand, but if Drew comes out of the gates very fast with like a Lingering Souls and a Sorin, maybe it's not that good.
It could also be one of those kind of 2-mana Farseeks.
Yeah.
Where he needs to draw the extra land, he gets 4 drops going. It could be a little bit of an expensive hand. Yeah, it could be a lot of those sorts of, like, I think a lot of those marginal hands which are keepers, but not slam dunks.
Yeah, he has a, you know, Thragtusk, Garruk. He has some high-end cards, Bonfire the Dam. If you have one of those hands where it's like Farseek, Garruk, Thragtusk, Bonfire, 3 lands, I mean, you probably keep that, but hesitantly against an aggressive deck, you know, which Drew's deck can be. So interesting to see what Pat's hand actually turns out to be here.
It looks like the feature match area clearing out behind Pat. Most of the matches look like they've wound down.
Yeah, maybe, again, I don't think a lot of people were drawing. Couldn't really afford to draw.
I'm really wondering, the match I'm very curious about, did Travis Wu emerge victorious? And are we going to be able to see Fogdoor in the top 8? I hope so.
I think everybody at home wants to see Fogdoor and Travis Wu.
Yeah, last one we caught the final turn of his game.
Oh.
As he just instant speeded using an Alchemist Refuge and a door to nothingness, untapped, and his opponent found himself losing the game.
Very nice.
It was an exciting end to the match. So here we do see the turn 2 Farseek from Pat. Drew has at least a Boros Reckoner and another Blood Artist in his hand.
Pat goes for the Blood Crypt, so he has access to double black. But not sure. Maybe it looks like he has a Victim in his hand.
Yep.
Which can't actually target Blood Artist.
He's a vampire.
So
the real question now becomes, which of his 4 drops does he have here? Olivia could end the game very quickly.
Although Drew does have an Orzhov Trump. So he does have one of his few answers for a Olivia.
And Olivia really is one of the trump threats out of Jund. It can single-handedly win the game if you just leave it alone for even a few turns if you don't have one of those removal spells. And Drew's deck doesn't have a lot of ways to get it. Oh,
wow.
Pat with no play.
Tap line, no play.
My guess then is he probably has multiple 5 drops. Because why else would he have kept his hand? Or multiple removal spells.
Yeah, it could be one of those Bonfire, Thragtusk, Garruk hands that we discussed. Likely, especially with the Farseek, you know, because why else would you keep that hand?
Looks like he has Abrupt Decay and either Mortars or Bonfire. In game 2, we saw him playing the Mortars aggressively on turn 2 to kill that Blood Artist. So would he have done the same thing here? Not sure.
Maybe he's rethinking all his lines because of this token strategy.
And he also has more mana now. So maybe he thinks, oh, I'll be able to, because I'm on the play and I Farseeked, I'm going to be able to much more aggressively use my Mortars on its kicked mode.
Yeah.
Or overloaded mode.
So Pat does use the 1 Abrupt Decay in his deck to deal with the Boros Reckoner from Drew. Oh, and it looks like that is Mizzia Mortars. Okay, so
here comes the Thragtusk.
Thragtusk, yes, sir. So Pat Cox finally gets to connect the Thragtusk to the board. Very important card in this matchup. Gains life. Very robust threat. Difficult for Drew to deal with sometimes. Drew has a Lingering Souls.
And does not have a 4th land to play that Sorin in his hand. Although we do see Wolfrun already play again for Pat.
Yeah,
Wolfrun making Sorin a lot worse.
Huge for Pat. So, and we also know there's a Mizzia Mortars. Doesn't have a 3rd red for the Overload just yet, but it looks like he might have drawn a Dragon Skull Summon. So, are we going to see overloaded Mizzia Mortars, perhaps?
I think there's no reason to do it right here. I'd rather just wait a turn, let Drew get the flashback on Lingering Souls, get a little more value out of it. Drew's not really. Oh well.
Although you do lose more damage to Blood Artist, though.
Sure. But I don't think you're really that. When you're at 20, you don't really care about that one as much. Although I don't think this is necessarily bad, especially if he has another one in his hand. This seems perfectly fine.
I think if Drew did install on land, maybe it'd be different. But I think with the Wolf Run in play and 6 mana, he's just going to start trying to be aggressive as possible and putting Drew on the backpedaling.
Drew doesn't opposite at not where what he wants exactly right now.
So rather than flash it back, he cast another Lingering Souls from his hand to maximize his mana for the turn. Now, are we going to see Pat Cox just go all in on Wolf Run on this Thragtusk, or is he going to commit more to the board?
I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable. We can't quite tell what's in his hand. If he doesn't have another threat, I like just pushing the damage. So he does not do that. He's definitely probably playing another creature.
So 5 comes over, dropping Drew to 9.
Maybe
or no, he does. He definitely gains some life of the Blood Artist.
This is an Olivia. I think we're going to be
it's definitely
moving
a 4-mana spell.
And it is,
and it
Olivia.
is, wow.
Oh,
so,
man.
Very powerful card.
Pat just had it all this game. And obviously Drew stalling on 3, not helpful.
Yeah.
But even if Drew had lands this game, it's really hard to come back from this.
It's going to be tough. Sorin really doesn't do much right now. He does have an Orzhov Charm for the Olivia, but he's going to have to take 4 damage. And again, Kessig Wolf Run and Thragtusk are threatening lethal.
Yeah, that's 9. So he'd be dead to a land at that point. And fighting on Valiantly.
So
goes to 10. Dead now to a land, unless he holds back his 1/1 to chump, which he probably will.
And
flashback. Oh, right, he is that at least. So he's not dead. In fact, he'll get to trade.
He'll get to trade. Yeah, he'll get to trade. He will take a lot of damage, but he can trade here, unless Pat has a Bonfire of the Damned in his hand.
We do know he has some red spell. I think it's maybe a Mizzing Mortars number 2. Any red spell though will be enough right here to really punch this thing through.
Now, would you cast the Mizzing Mortars, or would you just trade with all 3 tokens?
I would
and
cast
then
it here.
You just cast it? Okay.
Yeah. So when he cast the first one, I wasn't such a fan because Drew didn't actually have 3 power in play.
Yeah.
Here he's actually threatening to trade with your Thragtusk, and there's just no real reasons. Oh, maybe it's just a Pillar Flame. Same effect though. Again, just yep.
Okay, so it is the Pillar Flame. Now Drew can't trade the Thragtusk, and Pat will still be able to make the Thragtusk an 8 power.
So unless something really strange happens here, I think we're going to see Pat Cox victorious, going to 27 points.
Not necessarily. I mean, Drew still has that opposite eye. If he draws a land, he can play opposite eye. That's gains 2 life there. He could trade with the Thragtusk. It'll soak up 5 damage. So, you know, I still think Drew's a little alive.
He's going to 2 from this attack. He obviously had to put him back to 4. So I guess he's going to force him to do that. So he's going to go to 3 from this attack. Obviously will put him back to 5, leaving him with 6 toughness.
So he'll soak, yeah. So he'll be able to soak up enough for lethal.
And yeah, in Thragtusk has
Currently
a third Sorin drawn instead.
Okay,
not what we needed.
Not quite enough. Yeah, 3 Sorins and Obzedat. Looks like Drew's getting ready to just show him how bad his hand is. Yep. And there's a concession from Drew, and Pat Cox manages to win 2-1. And
Pat Cox got pared down. He was actually X and 1, so he advances now to 9-1, 27 points. Probably in the top half of the Swiss.
Yeah, probably.
Of the top 8.
Probably, definitely in the top half. Maybe the 1 seed.
Probably the 3 seed.
3 seed?
Or actually, probably the 4 seed. Assuming that Graham Lansford and Jake Humphreys, who were both at 25 points, assuming they drew. Oh no, they couldn't. They both got pared down.
Yeah, so I think Pat still has the potential to be the 1 seed. Either way, he's going to be at the top of the bracket. He's going to have the ability to.
I think he'll probably be the 4 or the 5.
Really?
Well, there's all the X1s played.
So that's right. Yeah, everybody played.
Yeah,
that's right.
So there's a ton of 27 points.
Yeah.
So I think he's probably actually going to be the 6 or 7 seeds, I guess.
So either way, he definitely made definitely making the top 8 here. Another Open Series top 8 for him. Very impressive. Drew Levin will have to settle for either.